Welcome to Verify in Field, the Millwork Podcast. Your host, Jacob Edmond, CEO of Duckworks, will be interviewing experts in the industry to bring you insights and knowledge about the latest trends, techniques, and challenges in millwork. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and join us as we explore the world of millwork. Here's Jacob.
Hey, Nico. This is our introductory podcast, and I wanted to bring you on today as our drafting manager at Duckworks and talk about training and how we handle it today at Duckworks, what we've learned from when we started, as well as some things that we're working to improve and your thoughts going forward. Starting out, though, I wanted to talk a little bit about your background and how you ended up at Duckworks. Can you tell us, how that came to be when you started working at Duckworks?
Yeah, for sure. Pretty exciting to be on our Duckworks podcast. Well, I am an architect. I graduated from the private university here in Santa Cruz in 2016. I started working 2014 in architecture, starting a small studio. We did mostly land approvals and house construction.
Mm-hmm.
Then I moved on to kind of doing teaching assistance in university while I was in my final year for thesis. And at the same time, I was working construction in one of the buildings that's actually very close to our office. While I was there, I first got hired as a drafter for construction details. And then eventually I moved to a supervision position where I was in charge with all the millwork for the 30-something apartments that we had there. I supervised mostly door installation, door finishes, some millwork. We had casework for kitchens, we had closets, and all that stuff. So that was really the first time I got kind of some experience in millwork. I didn't get to see back then how they actually built it, but it was more installation, right? And shortly after that, I got hired by one of my previous teachers from university to work on his woodworking shop for a bit, where I did get to see he did mostly doors. While I was working with him, we did like 200 doors in his shop, but it's nothing like what you guys build in the US, right? It's more manual work, more people are trained on the site, and we don't use as much technology, I guess. Then I did some construction supervision for a while, almost 2 years. Also, at the same time, I was doing drafting with the same architect. I was doing the supervision for the construction jobs that we had. And shortly after that, I went to Germany for half a year, I guess. When I come back, it was when COVID started. So I was kind of just doing my own thing, kind of having my own jobs for a little bit. And then I actually think I found our company in LinkedIn. And it was interesting to me at the time, working with a company that had jobs in the US. So I applied. A month after I applied, I got contacted. So I had my interview. I think it was July 27th or something. I had the interview by phone because I was in my natal city in Sucre. And then 5 days after that, on August 2nd, 2021, I got hired. So I had my training with us, and I've been here since then, basically.
Awesome. And at that point, there was how many drafters were working, I think, when you started?
When I started, I think I was drafter number 20, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really? I didn't think there were that many.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the last ones of the batch. Me and Carla Tejerina, who is one of our drafters. that still works with us. We started together here. We were like the last division that was getting hired for a while. And before us, I think the month before we got hired, the company hired around 10 people. So like a month before I got in, there was only 10 probably. And then we had an estimator division with 5 people.
Yep. And so at that point, everybody was working for our single client, USA Millwork, in those early days.
Yes.
And so you talked a little bit about this, but what was your, kind of experience and knowledge of millwork before working for Duckworks?
Well, my experience was mostly self-taught, I guess, because even though I got to work with a couple wood shops, I really didn't have a guide, right? So I would design what I thought or how I thought something should be built, and then I would design like a cabinet I did like a shop that was mostly wood paneling, and I designed a couple seats that you could put inside the wood paneling for storage, and then you could take out, and the whole would become shelves. It was like a kids bookstore, and they also did some kind of artwork for them. Like it was like a art school for kids, like really small. So I would just design what I thought it should look like, and then I would reach out to those wood shop, and they would kind of guide me as to how it should be built.
And at that point, though, had you heard the term millwork, or would you just kind of think of everything as woodworking? Or
so in Spanish, it's the same. We don't have really a term to separate millwork from woodwork.
Right.
So the first time I ever heard the term millwork was when I joined the company.
Yep. Okay. And so when you joined, what did your training look like at that point?
So my training was very, very fast. We were kind of in a rush to start with one of the divisions with our clients. So I basically had 1 week of training. I got trained by who is currently one of our supervisors, and then one of the drafters, one of our senior drafters. They basically tossed me into microvellum right away. So the first day when I started, I got introduced to microvellum. Back then, we used a lot of training videos. So it was like day 1, training videos. Day 2, like practice what you saw. Day 3, do something in microvellum, put some products. And day 4 and 5 was like a test, right? So they gave me a room, and I had to basically put the room in microvellum and make sure that everything was looking right. And then that was from Tuesday to Friday, and then the next Monday I already started with the client. So a lot of my training was actually while I was working.
Right. So it was a lot of on-the-job training, learning as you're going.
Yeah, learning and asking questions, reaching out to the ones that were already here before me. It was a lot of that.
Okay. And was that difficult?
At first,
learning software as well as a new industry, right?
Yeah, I think the difficult part was understanding how the construction was to be made, because before joining our company, I kind of was self-teaching Blender and Rhino and Grasshopper and Revit. So I was really interested in new software and how those could be used to do rendering. I really enjoy doing like architectural renders, so I was kind of exploring with different software. And when I joined, it was a whole different thing. I already used AutoCAD, and microvellum was basically a branch of it. So I think the transition was not that hard for me, but understanding how you guys do your cabinets, what the construction, what the parts mean, all the dimensions, doing stuff in inches instead of metric system, that was really the struggle.
Right. What about learning microvellum? What was the hardest part about that?
The hardest part about that was knowing what to mess with and what not to mess with. There are parameters that some of our clients are very particular about us not touching. So kind of getting used to, okay, I can modify the dimensions, but can I modify, I don't know, the base assembly dimensions, or how long can I make a base assembly, or I don't know, balances. How do I do that? Do I have to do it in microvellum? Do I put them in AutoCAD? I think that was the hard part for me.
Right. So after that, at some point you were a drafter, right? You worked at that point in one of our divisions, and eventually, though, you kind of evolved to be the de facto trainer of new drafters, right?
Yeah. So at the time, I think one thing that really helped me a lot was kind of asking a lot of questions. So as I asked more questions to our clients, I started gaining more experience and kind of getting used to the way they want us to do things. And eventually, I became a leader for my division. So I would be the point of contact with them. And I would also start reviewing the drawings of my colleagues. So the more I reviewed, the more I learned too. And I started noticing my own mistakes. So it got to a point where I got asked by our by the guy that was our drafting manager before me. I got asked to be quality control supervisor. So I started reviewing the drawings from everyone else, and that kind of allowed me to learn new standards and learn new things, and kind of find out how to do other things in microvellum that were outside my area. So I kind of started getting more knowledge, and then we started growing. And as we grew, we needed someone to kind of train the new people. So that's something I started doing.
So reviewing other drafters' work, though, was pretty key in growing your knowledge and experience, right?
Yeah, for sure. While I was leading that division, we started doing peer reviews because part of it had to be a time constraint because we were 5 people, if I'm not mistaken, and reviewing one drawing takes some time. And sometimes we had to review whole projects. So I started implementing with my team peer review, and I think that also helped the others kind of learn new things. But yeah, for sure, once you start trying to finding the errors or mistakes on a drawing, and also things that you see that they did right and you didn't, or things that make more sense than what you've been doing, that's when you start learning.
Right. Okay. So how do we train drafters now, and what does that look like?
So ever since I started training, I think we have had like 6 or 7 groups of training, and each time it has gotten better and better. Now we do on-site training sessions every day with the people that enter the office. We start in day one. We meet with them every day for a couple hours and kind of discuss and teach them. We don't use videos anymore. Maybe that's something we'll explore in the future. But right now, being one-on-one with them kind of helps. It kind of opens a path for them to ask questions right away, or even we delegate some work to them. Like we have a training session, then we give them an exercise to do in microvellum. And after they're done, we meet again and we review and we check that the products were placed correctly. Nothing moves when you redraw. Dimensions make sense. They're following the architecturals, because besides microvellum, we also have to teach them kind of surfing through architectural sets. We got to teach them Bluebeam. We do a little bit of Smartsheet, like basics that they need to know. But on the more project-related side, it's easier to meet every day and review even the model space, check the layers, check that everything is placed correctly. I think that's one thing we have changed, and it has helped us to be better.
It is meeting every day.
Yeah, being more available to trainees.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's really changed the game for us.
And it takes a lot of time, though. I mean, it's not like, this is a lot of your time when we have trainees come on, right?
Yeah, for sure. It takes a lot of time. I kind of gotta shuffle my schedule when we start training. I try to at least make myself available for 2 hours a day for them. And then, of course, after you give them an exercise, you have to do quality control on it. So for this new round of training that we're planning, we're probably going to include the supervisors because
Mm-hmm.
they have started becoming an essential part of training in the office. They hold training sessions with the drafters now almost once a month. We're trying to ramp it up to twice a month, and they kind of taking that role of a secondary training person maybe. So I think this new round of training that we're gonna have, they're gonna be more involved with the quality control part of it.
Yeah. And so it's kind of snowballed, right? Like you said, you've done 6 or 7 groups of training yourself. And in that time, we've grown our team as well as our structure. We have supervisors and team leads now. So as that has snowballed, we're able to bring in those team members to kind of help with the training. And it's not all on you anymore, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it also allows you to have bigger training groups and then still keep quality, because one person can train maybe 2, 3, 4 people, but once you start adding more people that add to the training, and they might teach them things that you have missed, they might notice things that you don't, and they also allow you to kind of be more efficient with time.
Yep.
So yeah, for sure.
And so now, over the course of the last year or so, we've also had a chance to work with a lot of different clients who all do things their own way, a little bit different sizes of companies, using Cabinet Vision, Microvellum, AutoCAD. What are some things that you think that you've learned and we've learned in our internal training that would be useful, thinking of like certain clients for them to do training or incorporate into training?
Oh, well, I think with every project we have learned a little. Sometimes you finish a project, you get some feedback and you're like, I should have cut that. So every stumble that we have had has allowed us the chance to learn more and be better. So how you want your model space organized. That's something we might not have asked a year ago, but right now it's something, if we're onboarding a new client, that's something that will come up. How do you like your model space set up? Do you do I don't know, plans and elevations, one above each, or sections aligned with your elevations in your model space besides your layout? We have learned a lot of AutoCAD for sure. Sheet set, probably when we started, we weren't very acquainted with it. Now we have drafters that actually advise the client on how they could use sheet set, layer states. I think every single project that we have done has allowed us the chance to learn a little bit more. And then when we kind of compile information, we try to hold training sessions with our team. We used to do coffee and learn for a little while, where we would kind of get everyone to jump on a Teams call and then share some useful tips, I guess, on, I don't know, how to review your own work, how to troubleshoot AutoCAD, how to manage blogs, where to find information, kind of getting our team to be more efficient on their work. And I think that has also made us better at complying with deadlines.
Yeah.
And yeah, for sure. And kind of, we used to have a huge volume of reviews, right? And our quality control process was very extensive. So all these training sessions that we have done have allowed us to kind of shorten those times.
Right. So, I mean, a big part of it is that one, we are constantly training, even after, we onboard drafters now. And I don't think we said this yet, but generally we go through about 4 weeks of training before those new trainees start working on client work, right?
Yes, that's right. When I started, it was a week. Now it's 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Because it's one side of it. It's because we have to teach them that we now are teaching them like the construction side of it. Now that we understand more on how millwork in millwork in the US works and how it's built and what are the processes that lead to a cabinet going from AutoCAD or Microvellum to site. We cannot teach them that side of it because one of the things we struggle with, or I've seen more people struggle with, is kind of having to picture in their heads how something is what's gonna be the final product, right? Mm-hmm. So now in our training, we have to we teach them how it's gonna be built, how it has to be drawn, and then we have to teach them that each one of our clients are gonna have a different set of standards and a different way of doing things. So during our training, we kind of give them challenges to adjust to this standard for this week, this other standard for this other week. And then we also train them in AutoCAD drafting a little bit, understanding sheet set, understanding dynamic blocks and all that. And then we train them in Microvellum too.
Right. And then after that, though, so we have 4 weeks of dedicated training. And for us, that's probably more extensive than if you're, like a millwork company and you're onboarding a new drafter or engineer that has industry experience. But for us, we're taking people that have related experience. They already are either architects or industrial designers or civil engineers. And in 4 weeks, we're making them a millwork drafter. But after that, we don't stop. We're, like you said, the supervisors are doing at least monthly trainings, and really we're probably doing something else, as we go. Obviously, we're in a very collaborative environment. Our drafters are all sitting next to each other, working on projects together, constantly learning. But I think it sounds like the key is that it's a culture of constantly improving and learning as we go. And as we learn things, sharing, like we have the learning channel in teams where anybody can kind of post and share things as they learn, right? So would you say that is also a big piece, is finding opportunities and kind of a concerted effort to keep learning and keep teaching everybody?
Yeah, for sure. Our learning and sharing channel has become, I think, one of the pillars of our training structure. I was really surprised when I started seeing our team leads and even some of our drafters sharing tips and like, here's a video on how to, handle dimensions. Here's a video on how to, creating dynamic blocks or modifying this thing in AutoCAD, or here's a tip on how to make your work faster. I think that's one thing I didn't expect to happen. And I think we have gotten to a point where we are very comfortable with sharing tips, no one's like jealous with their own knowledge. Everyone's sharing.
Right.
I think that has become a big part. And like I said, our supervisors are holding monthly training sessions, and sometimes without us even having to ask them to organize it, something that they do on their own accord. And then we also give our drafters incentives, since we have several levels of drafting, and depending on their skills and depending on their knowledge. So we that's an incentive for them to learn and to want to be part of the training, because they know that the more they learn, the more they can advance in the company.
Yeah.
That has also helped a lot, for sure.
Yeah, that is another important part, even, for anyone listening who works at a millwork company. just trying to figure out, how do we implement training and development. There's a lot of an opportunity there, that is formed around advancement. It's giving people a clear path of like, well, why am I learning this, and what benefits me? Obviously, it benefits the company if I become a better drafter or engineer, right? But giving them a path to like, okay, if I develop this one, am I going to be able to move up and become, a senior engineer, or and frankly make more money? And so we have made a concerted effort to build that into our path. Like you said, we have, when people come on, they're a paid trainee, and then they become a drafter 1, and eventually they get promoted to drafter 2 and 3 and senior drafter based on their knowledge and experience, which takes time to outline that, but it also makes it a lot easier to one, track, and develop and incentivize as people grow. So all of that, is a good summary of kind of to where you're at now in the history of your experience and how now we're training people. But you actually just got back. You had a chance to go spend a month on site with one of our clients training in person, and that was here in the U.S., right? A first chance of yours to step foot in a millwork shop, to see firsthand job sites, how the product goes from art drawings to engineering to material ordering and cutting and building, right? What was that like?
I mean, it was amazing. It was a great experience for me. It was actually quite shocking, because it was the client that I was working with when I first started in the company, and it was the team that I was working with it when I first started. So we got to go on site, and I actually got to see some of the stuff that I drafted that was already installed, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, hey, I recognize this. I've seen this somewhere," and I was like, "All right, I drafted this a while back."
Yeah.
So yeah, that was I think that was the best experience for me, and kind of getting to see something that I drafted actually built, and it was also very unique in the way that you get to see how a millwork company in the US functions, which is a lot different than us, right? Because it's a different culture. People in our office are kind of like more Latin wise, and it's really different, It's
Yeah.
the first time I've worked in an office that's actually quiet. So
Quiet and dark, right?
yeah, man.
But yeah, that helps now, obviously, because we're dealing with US clients every day, other companies just like that. And so I imagine it adds context that probably helps some things that maybe didn't, translate or make sense before, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's on one side you get to see what happens, interactions between drafters and their drafting managers and the project managers and the people in the shop. Like, they have, I think, the luxury and the privilege to work near their shops. So whatever they're drawing or whatever they're designing or doing, they can just walk in the shop and ask one of the shop guys, "Hey, I'm trying to get here. How can you help me?" And on the construction side of it, that's something I think that has really helped us. And I believe that even if I was the one to go kind of to the office to kind of share that knowledge, so kind of trying to take pictures and show them in our learning channel, "Hey, I saw this today, and this is how they build it." And look here, the nailer blocks that we see so much in micromalum actually on site, and this is how they work, and this is how they build the cabinets, and and this is a drywall, and those kind of things that you kind of have to imagine at first, and actually seeing them and taking pictures. That I think that helps a lot. And one thing that really, I don't know if shocked me, but one thing that really made sense to me is hearing that a lot of the drafters actually start in the shop. There are people that, I don't know, started on the CNC or started putting cabinets together or stuff like that, they eventually get to a point where they know so much that they can move on to the drafting side of it and draw it. And we
Right.
are kind of doing the opposite. We're starting the drafting and slowly getting to see how these things are built.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's a different path, which makes it unique and a different challenge too. Because like you said, it does help immensely to be able to be hands-on and see the product that we're drawing, right? What are some of the things that you learned from that surprised you the most?
Well, kind of, I got really into the actual like design or fabrication line at their shop, like kind of getting to see from the moment they receive the material to when it moves on to cutting, and then it moves on to the assembly line, and then edge banding and all that. That was one of the things I wouldn't have been able to imagine in my head. And also getting to see, okay, it doesn't stop at drafting, right? Because then it has to move on to engineering, and then before engineering even it has to go to the architect, and it comes back and it goes back again, and then you get field dimensions and you get change orders, and that's a lot of stuff that we don't really get at the office.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of getting to see the whole process after it leaves our office until it actually gets built and installed. I would have never imagined the amount of time that goes between us drafting and they actually installing stuff.
Right. Well, and also how important, I guess, all that happens after our drafting. You know, I think a lot of times it's easy to lose context for that and just think like, okay, well, we've finished this submittal, right? And it was submitted to the architect, job done. But really, that's still the very beginning of the process for our clients. And two, that like the finish line for us and really the results of our work, you know, being that, you know, we're providing a service where we do largely the submittals up front. But it's easy to lose context and think about, hey, we did a great job. They were approved. There were little comments. But the CAD files, the microphone products, all that data that we produce, it's not just the PDF, has to then go on to an engineering team that takes it and has to be able to work from what we've got and use it and update it for field dimensions, right?
Yeah.
You know, was that, you get a different picture of that as well while you were there?
Yeah, for sure. I worked closely with one of their drafters who handles the last part of it, and then he handles the production drawings and the field dimensions and all that before it goes into shops. So I got to see like what happens when you send a drawing that was not done correctly, either in Microsoft or in AutoCAD. I don't know, maybe the dimensions were not accurate enough, or a block was not handled correctly. So he has to go and spend a lot of time fixing that before he can actually release to the shop, which then causes delays in fabrication and delays in release. So for sure, I that's something I don't think I would have known otherwise unless I had gone there.
Right.
Like you said to us, it's okay, we submitted this job, it got approved, that's done. But like you said, that's kind of like the beginning. So it's like you better make sure that all your poly lines are closed, otherwise they're gonna come back and kick your ass in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a huge one. Or don't explode any blocks, right?
Yeah. Don't overwrite any dimension.
Yes. So what else, what did you learn there? Is there anything specific you can think of that, you know, you plan to bring back or you've already have to teach the team, you know, back in our office in Bolivia that you didn't know before or that you feel like you might incorporate into our training going forward?
Yeah, I think I've learned so much that it would be hard to choose one thing, but I've been trying to kind of share it bit by bit to our drafters, not to overwhelm them either. And one thing I do think that's going to help a lot is I got to see a lot of products and the actual finished products, and cabinets that were being made and parts that were just cut from the CNC and die wells that were in their first stages, right? They were cutting them and then they were assembling them. And I think that's a lot of that information is going to go into our training now, because now I can kind of show them, okay? Because when I say die well to a Bolivian, I mean, they're going to be like, what's that?
Yeah.
We don't build die wells. We build like a mid-height brick wall.
Yeah.
And that's where you put your stuff. So I can kind of show them, okay, this is a die wall. This is what it looks like in real life. And this is how you're going to represent it in CAD.
Right.
Or these are nailer blocks. We don't use those here. So just nailer block things. This is how they look in real life, and this is why they appear in section, and this is their purpose.
Yeah, but I think the reality is, though, even that is more in my mind not even so much a Bolivian versus American thing. It's a people who are in the industry of millwork versus not, because I talk to people who don't work in millwork every day here in the U.S. and they don't know what a drywall is. They don't know what a nailer is. They don't know what any of that stuff is. So I think that that's valuable context for anybody who's trying to onboard and train people in this industry from the ground up, And so one of the main reasons I wanted to, bring you on to talk about this topic is because training and developing new drafters and engineers is a huge pain point and kind of problem for everybody in the industry right now. And like you mentioned, the majority of the engineers and drafters today in the industry learned first by working in the shop or working in a CNC and kind of eventually gaining experience that way. But that path is not really continued at that rate, right? And that's partly because of the way the industry evolved. Is that 20 years ago, most shops didn't have drafting engineering like we do today, right? And so as the industry evolved and modernized and adopted, and we've got software, we've got CAD, CAM software, and we've got CNCs and automated machinery. It was, well, hey, somebody has to do this. Naturally, you add that internally. Okay, we've already got somebody who knows how to make cabinets or knows how to run the machine. Now let's have them learn how to do CAD, and it kind of grows. But we're in a different generation now where it's, okay, how do we bring in younger people new to the industry? And I see that path being more how we're teaching our people, right? They might come in from college or university already knowing AutoCAD, being architecture or something, and then teaching them millwork. So thinking about that, how would you, put yourself in like our customers' shoes? If you think about some of the engineering managers we work with, if, we were to give them advice on hiring new to the industry talent and creating a training program, where would you start?
Well, I would for sure start on the fact that we train our people for 4 weeks initially, but that's not when the training stops, right? You cannot expect a person to know everything in those 4 weeks. So kind of one thing that has really helped us a lot is making our supervisors and even our team leaders part of the training team, kind of, so to speak. Because once I release a drafter into our drafting pool or our overall team, they're not alone, or they don't have to fence for themselves. They get kind of adopted, I guess, by one of our supervisors and then one of our team leaders. Yep. And they get guided through the project. So I'm sure there are a lot of things that I missed during training, but those things get picked up by our team leaders and our supervisors and even our other drafters. There's a lot of collaboration in the office. And I think part of it has to do with the fact that it's not like we enforce training on them. We don't order them to get trained, but rather we make them part of the training culture, and we accept and acknowledge their ideas, and we implement their proposals when they come to us. So I think making them feel like they're part of the team and they contribute to the overall success of our company has been a big part in in our training culture. And like I said, I haven't seen one drafter in our office that knows something and it's like, I'm not gonna teach that to anybody because it's gonna make me less competitive. But they rather kind of offer themselves to teach everybody. And when we have our training sessions with our supervisors and the whole office is there, we get a lot of messages from our drafters saying, hey, I've seen you teaching this, and I also know a different way of doing this. We can also teach this command, or you can also find this information in this other place. So I think training is not something you can kind of do alone. Or maybe you can, I don't know, but it's something that for sure becomes easier and becomes a habit when you make your whole team a part of it.
Right. No, definitely. And as far as, it's you mentioned this early on, but we train in not just a single one software like AutoCAD or Microvolm, but it's also, it's technical, it is software, but other things like Bluebeam, how to read drawings, how to, the offline things, right? Like how we build things, how we just navigate files and stuff. So, incorporating a lot of those intangibles, I guess, is it? And how to just basically work in our company, right? And I think that's unique to anybody who's trying to make a training program. Is a lot of it starts with having that content or those standards and that information to train them with to begin with. And, for us, that's evolved over time as well, right? As we've developed more standards and processes, that gives us more defined things to train them on, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I first trained, I got a 5-page PDF where it basically was a room, and it was like, draw this room, and here's the information. And as we have had more groups of training, and we have implemented more stuff in our training, it's not only Microvolum, now it's also Bluebeam, it's Marsheet, it's all the software that we use to allow us to function. We have been developing the tools that we have, and right now we have Bluebeam sessions that we do them by difficulty. Like the first week, this is your Bluebeam session with this set of drawings that you have to make, and here's the information that you need to do that. And then the second week is a different project, new Bluebeam session. Third week, different project, new Bluebeam session, and that kind of gets them used to the way we work here. Because obviously, for every client and every project, for each client, we have a different session. We have a Bluebeam project. We have a way of organizing things, and we have different information. And kind of implementing those things into our training has made it easier because I don't have to sit with them 2 days, 4 hours teaching them Bluebeam, but kind of give them the basic tools, and we're going to start using this software along with Microvolum or AutoCAD, and they kind of pick it up naturally.
Right. So they're not just learning the technical side, of, hey, this is how we build things. This is how, which we're focusing on that. But while they're learning that, we're getting them used to all of the other parts of just the process of how working in our system is. So their training is exposing them and kind of getting them, muscle memory, so to speak, of, okay, this is how a job's going to work. This is how you're going to interact with a client. That makes sense.
Is there? Sorry, you kind of, if I imagine if we had 4 weeks and I just gave them one Bluebeam session and they did it once and they never repeated. Once they got into several projects, then they would be lost. So, kind of merging those procedures together into our training kind of helps them move easier into our drafting and projects.
Right. How to multitask, how to manage your time and start and stop from one thing to another.
Right.
Okay. Well, awesome. Is there anything else, that you can think of that would be valuable to anybody out there that's trying to, put together how they're going to start training and developing people?
Well, I would say one thing that sure helps is kind of if you're going to teach someone how to build something, you have to show them what you want them to build, right? You have to show them the final product and you have to kind of give them the path as to how they're going to get to their final product. Because I mean, if I wanted you to build a phone and then just give you pieces and then they didn't show you what the phone had to look like, you would just build a boat or something.
Right.
But kind of not having to guess what they have to do sure helps. Making the members of your team that you know that can contribute part of your training program also helps a lot because it lifts weight out of your shoulders and it also brings in new ideas and new methods and new things that you didn't know before or maybe you weren't capacitated to implement. I don't know. That helps too. And kind of to making a plan, a schedule. We have a training schedule that we share with our trainees so they know first day, this is what's going to happen. Second day, this is what's going to happen. And we have that throughout the 4 weeks. So every day when they come into the office, they can check what they have to do. So if you're busy in a meeting or if you're, I don't know, caught up in a project, they are not dependent on you to keep moving forward.
Yep.
That also helps a lot. And quality control, also checking their work, making sure that they're doing what they're meant to do, making sure that if they have questions, they feel comfortable enough to approach you and ask. That for sure is a big thing too.
So having a plan ahead of time, written down and that you can communicate with the trainee. So I think that's a big one because I know when I've onboarded people, at many companies, one, I didn't usually always have a plan, and that one, just me as a manager having, hey, HR has brought me, a new drafter. It's great. You've given me some more resources, but now it's taking much of my time. And if I don't have a plan, like you said, then they're just kind of constantly sitting there asking and waiting for information. So planning up front and mapping out each day with tasks and giving that to them so that they know, hey, here's what I need you to do and here's what's next. And they're not constantly waiting on you. And then two, planning, like you said early on, about 2 hours a day, planning enough of your time every day so that it's not all of your time, but that you're able to check in and make sure that they're continuing to make progress. I think those are two major points.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, training is stressful. Having people that are new that are depending on you is stressful. So the more you can plan ahead to relieve that future stress from your shoulders is going to help you focus on what you gotta focus. Then that's work and that's training and that's making sure that the people that you're hiring are starting with the necessary tools to succeed. And I think I've heard you say before, like setting expectations. So if you don't give them a plan, they don't know what your expectations are for them.
Yep.
They don't know when they have to finish something, and they don't know what they're supposed to do the next day or who to speak with. And that's also a big thing. Like when you onboard someone, you gotta make sure that they know who they need to approach for certain things. Like HR is this person, and this other person is going to be in charge of your training. And if I'm not available, please reach out to this supervisor. So at all times, they know where they're standing.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Those are good points. Okay. Well, I think we've covered a lot of good bases on training and a lot of what, I think is difficult to wrap your head around, for a lot of our listeners. If you're out there trying to figure out how do I, develop and train new drafters and engineers, develop a curriculum or a roadmap and kind of what that could look like. We've covered a lot of topics today that I think are really valuable and applicable for anybody looking to do this, as well as from a different angle of somebody who maybe isn't coming up from the shop floor, as well as just in general onboarding, like you just said. How do you plan ahead and make it as stress-free as possible? And then how do you just continue that path of learning and continuous improvement with your team. So appreciate your time today, Nico. And I know that we'll have a lot of great conversations like this in the future.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do you want to stay up to date about industry insights, new content, and our community of millworkers? Go to duckworksmw.com to sign up for our newsletter. I'll see you in the next episode of Verify in Field.